Duke, do you want the ball?
Greetings, Quicksters, and welcome to Deep Dive Zone, a Sonic review series for fans of all shapes and sizes. I'm your host, Evan, as usual, joined by my co-hosts, Lauren and Bruce. And guys, this Knuckles arc is not really a Knuckles arc, it's kind of just a collection of random shit.
I
Yeah.
thought two of them were connected.
They're all actually kind of connected. It's just not in like a clear arc like it normally is. It's kind of just like ongoing plot, similar to the Sonic comics sometimes.
I guess, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not a 3-issue arc, but
Right.
it's like you say it's not connected like usual, and it's like it's that it's less connected than usual. It's usually still kind of disjointed just because they can't focus on one plot point at a time in these comics. We're starting
Fair.
here with Knuckles number 16, and I think this is one of the most fitting covers for any Knuckles issue, because it really does illustrate that, yeah, Knuckles is here, but it's really everybody else that's taking center stage.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
We are starting here with reunions. Penderson Gallon, as usual. Knuckles returns home to learn that Lara Ley and Windmocker are engaged, stirring many mixed feelings in him. Meanwhile, the Brotherhood of Guardians assemble to discuss the future of Echidna kind. We start with a very obvious bit of imagery, because we start with Lara Ley praying at the church, and her prayers are immediately answered by finding Knuckles at home. This is all she does. She thinks about her son and prays.
I mean, I can't
Yeah.
blame her for thinking a lot about her son, because, he's now just suddenly part of her life again.
She also prepares for when he shows up by getting engaged, for instance.
Yes. Yeah, well, okay, fair enough. You know what, fair enough. I guess that's not necessarily, but, whatever. So yeah, Knuckles gets home, he says hey to Lara Ley and Windmocker, and they're, preparing something, but they don't tell him immediately that they're engaged. Let's talk about this little bit with some of the other Guardians here, because we're getting introduced to 3 new grandpas all at once.
Tobarr's ship is literally the Slave One from Star Wars.
Damn it, I wanted to say that.
Yeah, that is not the first time we've seen a Star Wars ship in here, and certainly not the
Definitely
last.
Not the first. Definitely not the first time. I think we saw the Millennium Falcon at some point.
You can also see an X-Wing in the hangar, it just doesn't have the wings out.
Oh my gosh.
Does it?
right.
Oh yeah. There's also
I
a Star
didn't
Trek
notice
shuttlecraft in there.
Okay, yeah. There are a lot. I've seen ones in the background, but it was just funny that they centered on one, which they usually don't.
Yeah, they usually don't center on the copyright infringement.
Yeah, I have to wonder if, because the colorist had to know what it was that Gallon had drawn here, and they're like, shit, I gotta make sure to just color this all one color, because,
course.
I mean, Lucasfilm is maybe not as litigious as Disney at this point, but they're
No,
still
but-
probably litigious.
Yeah, I think they were still fairly litigious.
Yeah, and so, let's see, which fucking guys are these? Tobarr is one, and I don't remember the other two. Purple guy and guy with a metal plate on his head.
I think it's so Tobarr is the one that just came out.
Yeah, he's the one with the visor.
Saber is
That's Locke's dad. We've seen
that's
him.
Locke's dad, right? And I think the purple one is like Thunder Chief or something.
Thunderhead, I believe it is.
Something
Thunderhawk.
like that.
Thunderhawk is what it
Thunderhawk.
is.
There we go.
Thunderhead is a made-up joke name for Cloud Strife in a Final Fantasy parody, I think.
Gonna be honest, when the story doesn't bother to introduce them one at a time, I don't bother to keep track of them.
I mean, that's fair enough. I think they don't actually tell us their names until later this issue when it's just dumped in our laps.
Well,
Yeah.
and here's the thing about every member of the Brotherhood of Guardians, is that they all have pretty much the same personality.
Yeah, basically.
So we get back to Lara Ley and Knuckles, and we get a little bit of flashback and backstory, and every time we hear about Lara Ley's life before we met her, it just fucking sucks.
Man, she just wanted to be a good mom. I guess she's getting to make up for that now.
So, there are a lot of thoughts I have on this whole sequence. First of all, I'm not sure if this is just a term, or do echidnas hatch from eggs?
Yes, they do.
Real echidnas do, and they
Yes.
do in universe, which makes it really weird that she was also pregnant for, months? She's
I mean,
pregnant with an egg?
Yeah, I believe eggs, you still have animals that lay eggs, I believe, still have a gestation period where they carry the egg.
Yeah, but not
Okay.
like human pregnancy, which is what this looks
No,
like.
but like I assume the idea is to kind of show that these characters are they're basically human, just in like fursuits.
Then don't make it an egg.
Well, you
Yeah.
still want to don't you still don't want to forget that they're echidnas.
I'm not gonna forget.
Look,
Uh,
Penders thinks you'll forget.
All right.
Oh yes,
Well,
when it says Knuckles the Echidna on the cover, I will definitely forget these are echidnas.
Yeah, he's clearly just some weird red-haired kid.
Okay. Second observation. Apparently Knuckles is a genius, which really was not apparent.
No, it isn't.
yeah. Apparently, Knuckles is supposed to be like a child prodigy, which is like no, like that's not Knuckles the Echidna in the games. Like
No.
Knuckles in every Sonic game, including Sonic 3, is a guy who's like street smart, you know?
Yeah,
He's
that's a good description of him.
he's a guy who can be clever, but he's not like a math whiz. He's not like a super reader. Even when Knuckles isn't a complete idiot in the series, he's never been book smart.
Right.
Yeah, that. Okay, yeah, that didn't seem right to me.
But of course, this is Lorelei, so it's her trying to have any amount of influence in Knuckles, but Locke is just a controlling bastard, and she runs outside, talks to, what is it, her mom or Locke's mom, somebody?
I think it's Locke's mom.
Yeah, and she basically just says, well, don't marry a guardian then, dumbass. Like, everybody just tells her it's okay that Locke is like this.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, kind of.
It's like on one hand, I don't want to say I understand why they're saying this, but there has to be like a support group for the partners of Guardians that you could go talk to.
Well, no, you can't, because they live for hundreds of years, so they're dead. Like,
Fuck, yeah, that's a good point.
I'm amazed that Saber's wife is alive, frankly. Or was.
Fuck, yeah, that's a good point. Huh.
It's really weird, because it so clearly reads like something, setting up that Locke has hubris to overcome, and that Lorelei is right. It so feels like that, but it never happens. It never happens in these comics.
It actually seems more like Lorelei as having to come to terms with the fact that she is powerless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the Knuckles grandpas sit down at a table and talk about their experience with spying on different parts of the planet. So this is where we get more formally introduced to these guys, but not that much. So yeah, Tobarr is the wrinkly one with the visor, Thunderhawk is the purple one with stupid hair, the metal plate guy is Sojourner?
Sojourner.
And the one with the cyborg helmet is called Spectre, and that was the only one that I remembered because he's the one that is the most distinguishable from Knuckles out of all of them.
Yeah, like you said, spying on everyone. I kind of hate how this story just establishes, apparently there are Echidna Guardians all over the planet. Also, I don't understand why the one who looks over the Dragon Kingdom is like, oh, everything was fine when the Iron Queen took over and was like making everyone die of thirst, but then Sonic and Tails came in and ruined everything. Like, what? Huh? What are you talking about? Like,
I mean, it really
one in
seems
Down Under
like
says the same thing. Like, they're all like,
it really
Well-
seems like the Brotherhood would prefer just a status quo, and
Exactly.
that status quo really just seems to be, and for the most part, when there's some big bad in control.
Well, it's because, when there is a big bad, it's a situation that they think that they
Right.
have control over because it makes people more easy to manipulate, essentially.
Yeah.
They say in so many words that Robotnik's defeat was essentially a problem for them because they think, this is my reading of it, it's that it's people are easier to control in a crisis. They say, it's basically easier to unite against a global threat than deal with many small issues. And it's, hilarious here in the 2020s to think of people uniting against a global threat. But Yeah, it's weird because I don't think we're meant to think these guys are scumbags, all of them at least.
They really come off like that.
You know, uh, it's funny how some of your readings of these, I'm like, no, that's not right. But this one, no, that is completely correct. That makes everything clearer to me. When your reading suddenly makes everything make sense, but I'm pretty sure that I don't think that was the intention, but that's the way it makes sense.
This is
That's
Ken
totally how they are.
Penders saying that a shadowy cabal that secretly controls society, that's good, we want that.
That's
Right.
like almost also like conspiracy theory level shit.
Yeah. So yeah, that's this fucking scene. Oh, and we also hear from the identical Ant Brigade. That's not Archimedes wearing the cowboy Indiana Jones outfit. It's a different guy.
Of course.
But he
Yeah.
basically says that the Guardians are kind of like the Echidnas CIA. So they are literally like global manipulators. They're like world police.
Semper Fidelis is the name of that one ant. In the first scene they're shown in, they've got this big Chad chin.
Ugh. I really wish Ken Penders could make the good guys look like good guys and bad guys look like bad guys. So then we cut back to Knuckles' place, and Windwalker serves up a pile of rocks.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought it looked like a rock.
It's Canadala Exquisite. I don't know what that is. I don't think that's real.
It sounds like bullshit French, which means I would normally assume Antoine said it.
Antoine emails Echidna Society a recipe for exquisite cuisine to prank them and makes them eat rocks instead. That's what Antoine does in his free time. He's an internet troll.
You mean most of the time because we don't fucking see him anymore?
So, this is the scene where they tell Knuckles that they're getting married, and Knuckles gets really upset about this.
Yeah, so I mean, I would kind of understand that why this would upset someone. Makes sense. However, he seems to react much stronger than I would expect him to.
It's hard to say, based on, my own life experience, because my parents are quite happy together, but my thing is that Knuckles does not know his mother particularly well, it feels like, because she was absent for most of his life, and, is still complicit in the lie that Locke is dead for the most part.
Right.
I don't know whether Knuckles is even supposed to know that. We've talked about that problem.
It's unclear.
But it's also like, I don't know. It's also like it's hard for me to tell how much Knuckles is supposed to know about his mom's frustration with his dad as well. She's basically said, there were some difficulties, but I don't think they've really gone into deep detail to Knuckles.
It would be potentially upsetting regardless whether he thinks Locke is dead or not.
Yeah, I suppose.
I was just going to move to the next part where Vector is still completely at odds with Julie Sue. It's always hilarious when he's getting angry. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know what his deal is. It's also funny to me that Knuckles runs out of his house and all of his friends are standing outside.
I mean, some of them, they seem like they just kind of hang out wherever they think Knuckles is, but mainly just Vector.
It's just this cloud of barely sentient tertiary characters that follows in Knuckles' wake.
Barely sentient, Jesus, okay.
Well, I say barely because Julie Sue does decide to go comfort Knuckles, which I hope leads to a good character moment for the two of them.
Yeah.
So the thing that the Guardians are actually all here to talk about is that they're basically concerned that Knuckles is supposedly getting a bunch of magic powers too fast, and Spectre implies that something Locke had to do with in the past is to blame for that. Which I didn't bring that up at the start of the issue, but apparently the guiding star gem, that we've been seeing did not make the portal Knuckles used to get home, and that Knuckles actually did it himself?
Yeah, so I was right, actually, that it's supposed to guide you home and not teleport you home.
It's weird. I don't like it. It's just dumping loads and loads of magic Dragon Ball Z abilities on Knuckles. He's got instant transmission now.
I mean, I honestly, from what Steppenwolf did when he just It's like, let me wave my hands around and then imprison the entire Dark Legion. I don't think that's that much.
Yeah, that was like a few months or whatever after he became Guardian, right?
Knuckles has been doing this for at least that long, I think.
Knuckles has been a Guardian for years. He was abandoned when he was 6
Yeah.
years old.
I mean, like training with the other
ants.
Guardians.
Yeah.
I mean, he got trained by Locke long ago, but then he was on his own for a while.
Yeah, dumb. So, we do actually get a scene here between Julie Sue and Knuckles, but it's a little weird.
Okay, good. I'm glad you think the same. It seems a little forced.
Well,
It's a nice scene, but yeah, it is kind of forced.
I like the visuals on it. You know, it's nice to sit on a dock at night under the moonlight or whatever, but it's like Knuckles is just, complaining, he's annoyed, and then Julie Sue just kisses him for no explained reason.
Well, you don't just sit down and kiss your homie sometime?
That is a very different relationship dynamic than I have with pretty much any of my friends. I don't know, it's just, we knew from the start that they were setting up Julie Sue and Knuckles. It's just that this is us getting closer to that, and we have not received any real, believability to it.
Yeah.
Just because they don't talk. Like, they just kind of are around each other, and that's enough.
Yeah, it's not written very believably.
And that's the end. We haven't really had anything set up here, have we?
Well, I mean, they set up the Brotherhood of Echidnas.
Yeah, we got more information
I
about the
suppose.
Brotherhood, and they're clearly setting up something with Knuckles and Julie Sue, like really pushing to set it up now.
Yep.
We'll talk about
And,
the
like-
romance arc when we get there.
Oh, of course it's an entire arc. Why wouldn't it be an entire fucking arc?
Let's delay that for now and talk about Knuckles number 17. Featuring two characters that we don't necessarily have any idea who they are.
But there's a hat, and that's what's important.
We have seen that hat before, but I don't think it was worn by the same guy.
No.
No.
This is actually it's technically considered an arc. It's called Deep Cover, but it's 2 issues. This is The Guardian Who Failed, Penners and Gallon. Julie Sue discovers an aged echidna claiming to be the Guardian Tobarr. Just before the Brotherhood of Guardian learns this, their power is cut, and Tobarr explains to Knuckles that the man the Brotherhood believes to be him is actually a Dark Legion leader called Moritori Rex.
That's a really stupid name. I'd like to point that out.
There are lots of stupid names in these stories, but yes.
Especially echidnas. Especially male echidnas, excuse me.
We have this starting scene with Julie Sue discovering real Tobarr here on like a weird bird horse.
Yeah, so echidnas have horses now, apparently.
I saw a post about this thing a while back. Apparently this bird horse thing is just straight up traced from an old Hanna-Barbera show.
Wow.
Is that so?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was like Volgar the Terrible or something like that.
Well, Volgar, I think, is from Volgar the Barbarian, which is a game.
Okay, maybe it's that. I don't know.
Well, this is a game from, 6 years ago.
Okay,
Not a
let's not-
Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Anyway,
So, I'm not sure what it is, but I got really confused. I thought this was a flashback at first because Tobarr, the way they're drawn, looks really young, just to me. It looks
Yeah,
like,
they're not really wrinkly.
yeah, at the least, at the most, it looks like maybe they have a concerned expression on their face,
Yeah.
but not that they're old. Okay,
Yeah,
not just me, that's good.
It's like the other fake Tobarr we saw for about 30 seconds last issue is a lot more wrinkly.
this is where things are getting really weird, right? Because Guardians are supposed to live for hundreds of years, so it makes sense that the real Tobarr wouldn't have aged as much, but Moritori Rex shouldn't be alive at all, because he's not a fucking Guardian.
Okay, I assume it has something to do with cybernetics.
It's possible.
That's the only thing I can think of, because that is a really good point.
My explanation was way worse, so let's go with that
Oh
one.
boy, all right. You can't say that and then not tell us.
I'll bring it up when the bit of plot that it pertains to comes up.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, so Tobarr attacks Julie Sue because she has one cyber dreadlock, but that it's gonna be fine. And of course, because we can never just finish a scene, we have to immediately cut to Knuckles gliding off a building with his eyes closed to prove that the guiding stone does what they say it does and just lets him know where stuff is.
I love the Mr. Happy building.
Yeah. Is that a reference to something?
I would assume so, being it seems really out of place if it isn't, but hell if I know what it's a reference to.
Yeah. And I almost forgot this scene where the Guardians reveal that they've had someone in cryogenic storage held here for, like, years?
Right.
Yeah, apparently they just got Genova in the back closet.
Actually, here's a question. Do either of you know who this is?
I do because I've read forward now.
Oh, okay.
But if Lauren doesn't know, I mean, there's no reason to bring it up right now anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
Alright. So, yeah, we get this whole spiel from real Tobarr, that he's the real one and Jody LaForge there is an imposter. And his way of proving this is that he has the white Nike swish on his chest.
Yeah, apparently that's a symbol of being a guardian.
I'll accept it. It's fine.
I mean, I guess that would explain why no other echidnas seem to have it. I've never really thought about that until I read that.
That's a pretty conspicuous thing to conceal. Did Morituri Rex never take off his shirt in front of anybody else for hundreds of years?
I mean, maybe he's embarrassed. I don't know.
He could have easily faked it too.
Yeah, it's spray paint.
So could this Tobarr.
Yeah, that's true.
That'd be amazing if he was manipulating him and he was the real Morituri Rex.
Oh my gosh.
That would be pretty funny.
That's too big of a plot twist for these comics, though.
Yeah, that's too big-brained.
Anyway, despite those implications, bigger question is why does Tobarr go from your kind is a scourge on this planet I have to exterminate to just agreeing to have Julie Sue lead them to Knuckles? They don't explain how that fight ended.
I guess she just...
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, and she's just fucking saying, yeah, do it, motherfucker. So, I guess
dare you.
I guess his better nature got a hold of him. I don't know.
It's just weird.
He doesn't seem like a huge bastard, so maybe. And he also relays to us his tragic backstory, which is that he became Guardian when Hawking, the old wrinkled dude who is still alive, I might add, still being kept alive.
Die yet.
Yeah.
So he stepped down from the Guardian position, I guess because he was building the dimensional thing for Echidnopolis?
Sure.
Maybe.
Sure, good. You gave an explanation, unlike these people.
He gives his son the hat, which is hilarious because Hawking also gave that hat to Knuckles and then it just disappeared. But the first day that he was Guardian, basically, he got into battle with Morituri Rex, who, out of all the Dark Legion, looks the least like a Legionnaire.
Yeah, many cybernetics.
Yeah, he's got, like, cyber eye sockets?
I have no idea. This is like the side of your eyes getting them pierced or something. It's like that's the worst place I could imagine having a piercing.
Jesus Christ. No, don't say that ever again.
So Tobarr and Morituri Rex had a big fight in the middle of Echidnopolis. Apparently the Dark Legion has just been pulling this shit for this entire time and nobody ever like devised a good solution to get rid of them until now.
Well, I mean, they do explain why they're able to do it.
Yeah, they do.
So they have a big fight, but at the end of the battle, they both get caught in a big blast and a big rock slide as a building gets... Basically, a building falls on top of them. And they're both horribly injured, at which point Hawking shows up, finds Morituri Rex, mistakes him for his son, and takes him home instead, and they just believe that he's Tobarr for the rest of his life.
And that's the problem with all these bastards looking the same.
This is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, no, this is
It is totally absurd. Well, also, Rex has fucking... He's got the cyber eyes, but now suddenly they're gone.
Conveniently.
Yeah, I guess they weren't part of them. They're just like a tattoo or something.
Well,
tattoos don't just like break off.
It's like like, yes, we have technically canonically established that all echidnas look really similar, which is
Right.
very stupid, but B, they don't all sound the same in terms of their voices.
Yeah, that's what I was
That's
thinking.
true. That's a good point.
C, even if he's an amazingly good liar, I don't think he knows enough about Tobarr to convincingly pretend to be him for all these years.
They do actually
Counterpoint,
cover
amnesia.
that. Yes, that they literally say, well,
Yeah, they do.
they say he probably did that, and
Yeah.
so that's the implication.
So, yeah, counterpoint.
D, Tobarr, instead of correcting this, decides to wander Mobius in exile and disgrace for years for no reason?
Okay, that... Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
dumb.
point is, again, absurd.
Yeah.
And E,
Oh, good,
a
okay.
Dark Legion Grandmaster has been living as Tobarr for decades or centuries at this point, and you
Yeah.
didn't think telling them that was more important? There's an evil plot afoot, and who knows how many there have been in the decades, centuries since these guys got switched.
He was too ashamed
Yeah.
that he lost to the dude to come out and stop him. Also,
It's
I
so-
think he knew in the back of his mind that until he showed up, that his imposter wouldn't be able to do anything plot relevant.
That's stupid! Well,
Well, yeah, of course it is.
maybe that's one of our signs that Knuckles does have his game series intellect, because he does not find the story stupid, he finds it touching.
I mean, I don't know. Long lost family member. I can understand that being quote unquote touching.
Knuckles finds new long-lost family members under rocks.
That's a good point. He keeps meeting new like great grandparents and uncles and shit.
And fittingly, he concludes from all of this that what he really needs to do is go talk to Kragok in prison.
Yeah. So I'm like not 100% sure why he wanted to go talk to Kragok.
I guess to get information on Rex? I don't know.
Well, that is what he intends to do.
Okay,
It's
that,
like, oh,
that
this
is,
guy was
okay.
from the Dark Legion, then he probably knows about Rex.
Yeah.
Also, fuck the editors for saying in the to be continued, then saying it'll be worth it, because that just feels like teasing.
I have not pointed out every time an editor's note has said something along those lines.
I've never noticed it other than this time.
I've seen it a few times where it's like, it's going to be good, or something
be
along
honest,
those lines.
Like 95% of the time, I ignore the editor's notes. Unless they're like plot relevant, they're most of the time just fluff that's just annoying.
Well, speaking of annoying fluff, let's move things along to Knuckles number 18 here.
Well, I disagree about this being annoying fluff, so let's talk about it.
Alright, I do actually like the cover, at least it looks cool.
Yeah, the cover looks fucking awesome.
That's often the case. Not always.
I'd like to point out that Tobar's outfit is now suddenly brown, not green, or greenish.
I don't know why he never got new clothes in all of his time wandering the Earth. What is it with the echidnas in exile and not knowing how to get real clothes?
Yeah, good question.
Really adds to the sob story.
Yeah, there you go.
I suppose so. This is Debt of Honor. Knuckles interrogates Kragok to get more information on Tobar's story, but Kragok chooses then and there to stage his escape and attack Knuckles.
It's completely on accident. I don't think it's even explained how he escapes.
I believe that's true.
I assume it's going to come up later.
Besides all that, we start off with Lara Lay talking to Tobarr about how to be good at parenting, even though it feels like we have more important matters to attend to.
But she's just trying to basically get from anyone any amount of vindication, but unfortunately, none will be found ever. So I may just be desperate here, but I love that finally we get a moment where Knuckles can take control of the situation and just do something on his own. He's not being thrown around by the plot. No, he is driving the plot. He's like, all right, Kragok, let's talk. All right, Remington, lock us in here. Don't listen to what we're doing. Go away. Leave me on my own. And then he goes full hardcore with his interrogation.
Knuckles is bad cop mode right now, yeah. He's ready to beat the crap out of Kragok if he doesn't give him what he wants.
I feel like he's just tired of being thrown around.
It's possible.
He's
It's really
like-
hard to say how he feels.
Yeah, I mean, you can interpret it however we want, but it does feel like, he's getting tired of stuff just happening, so I guess he wants to take control of the situation.
Yeah, which is a shame, because I wish that he had gotten more information out of him than he does. He threatens him, and he says, "Tell me about Tobarr." He doesn't get a lot of answers, though.
Yeah, just when
Yeah,
he's
it's true.
like, I'll mercilessly beat you up. I don't care about, whatchamacallit, cruel and unusual punishment and whatnot. That's conveniently when suddenly the rift opens up and then they just get thrown around.
Yeah, so I said Kragok staged his escape, but it's more that it just randomly... He attacks, and then they are just suddenly teleported to the green dimension. And you can tell it's the most dangerous dimension, because it's green.
That's right, very dangerous.
So then we cut away back to Tobarr, giving us the bonkers explanation for how his dad could mistake Rex for him. And this explanation it does not satisfy me, because their explanation is that they sustained the exact same injuries.
Apparently. I mean, it doesn't matter if they did. The point is that Rex lost their eyes, and eyes are a big part of what makes a face, I think. So that helped them pull off the disguise. That doesn't cover the voice and all that, though.
Well, and it's just annoying, because if you were to take Rex's visor off now, he wouldn't look any different, because they're echidnas. They all look similar.
Yeah.
I think that was the point, though.
Well, basically, here in the Twilight Zone, they call it, which is a very fun reference, Kragok explains a little bit of the stuff that we already knew, except I think he also kind of implies that Rex replacing Tobarr was intentional to some degree.
Yeah, so that's the weird thing, is they imply that somehow this was a plan all along, and like, really? They got themselves injured on purpose? That it really seemed accidental. Like, how do you plan that?
Yeah,
I mean,
it doesn't make any sense.
If that's true, that really is like 1,000 IQ.
Playing the long game, 7-dimensional chess.
Apparently.
Yeah, like goddamn.
This is also when they bring up that time in the green dimension. I like that. Let's call it that. Flows at a different rate than outside, which is kind of a random addition. I'm not sure why that's necessary. Honestly, it seems like they just wanted to screw up the timelines even more.
The most that I can say is that it makes more sense because some of the Dark Legion characters that we've met are supposed to be, like, close descendants of Dimitri, but Dimitri is also supposed to be really old.
Right.
So, like, we haven't met, like, Lianda yet, but, she's Dimitri's granddaughter, not 15 generations removed. And especially, I don't know whether they've revealed this, it's not going to be a big deal if they haven't directly said it. A lot of the high-ranking Dark Legion members are directly related to Dimitri, which does include Julie Sue, but the thing is, Dimitri is still a several generations removed uncle of Knuckles. So you need that 15 generations to be there if you're going to ship Knuckles and Julie Sue, who are technically cousins.
Right.
Oopsie daisy.
But to be clear, I'm only saying this because it's weird that they keep calling attention to generational shit in these comics. I know that in real life, if you're 15 generations removed from somebody, like, you're as related to them as you are any random person on the street.
Right, you might as well be strangers.
Yeah.
Right. So, the other thing I have to say about the whole time difference is, because I promised, was my stupid theory wasn't cybernetics, but was that, because we don't know what Rex has been doing this whole time, because they haven't shown up, maybe they just jumped in the green dimension and then hopped out a few times, and that's how
actually,
they're still alive.
That makes, honestly, in universe, that makes a little bit more sense than just saying, cybernetics.
Well, and given that the Legion is supposed to have ostensibly been trapped in here at multiple different points, I don't really know how they keep going out and coming back in. But if that is true, that would be how he would relay information to his people. So.
Right.
I also want to just quickly mention that I called Moratori Rex Geordie LaForge earlier, but here on page, like, whatever this is, where
There's an actual
Kragok
Geordie LaForge.
Yeah, that guy's name is Moonwatcher. He's one of the Guardians, but in the top right, yeah, he
That's
even
nice.
has a Starfleet uniform.
Yeah, he is literally Geordie.
Anywho, the green dimension is mostly not green for a lot of this, but I like calling it that. So they just randomly find a portal that leads out of there.
Yeah.
And that sets off Tober's Spidey sense for some reason.
He senses legionnaires. I don't know how.
Yeah, and I'll say this. He doesn't ask questions. He immediately decks Kragok in the face, which is pretty good.
That's awesome.
It is very satisfying. I like how from Knuckles' fight, his arm is now, the robot arm is now bent out of shape.
And we just had a weird discussion about it here, but I want to just mention for anybody who's, looking at the scans on the screen as we're talking about them, is that they use the phrase Twilight Cage to refer to the Twilight Zone in here. That's only in re-releases, and if that were in the original, that would have given Penders and his weird lawsuits much more credit, but it's not. That's not true. They changed that, so don't worry about it. He's still wrong.
Honestly, I disagree. Actually, it's surprising how similar they are, but I don't know. He's still a jerk. That's true.
They're obviously inspired. My point is that they are legally distinct.
Okay.
But the end to this fight is not much of an ending at all. Tobarr just kind of flies Kragok into the fun zone to beat him up, and then we're just done. So, at the end of this story, Lorelei and Julie Sue are really happy to see Knuckles. They're like, "Oh, thank God you're alright." And they're like, "What happened to Tobarr?" And Knuckles is like, "Oh, he's busy. He's fighting Kragok." But the thing is, we've just had him reveal that there's a traitor, an imposter, among the Brotherhood of Guardians. The Brotherhood never learns this, though.
Yeah, the Brotherhood is literally watching Knuckles. So, like, were they hyper-focused on Knuckles when he was in the green dimension that whole time and just barely missed when Tobarr passed by him or something?
I mean,
that's impossible.
To be fair, a lot of that time their power was out.
Oh, wait, I forgot all about that. That was literally the explanation. So,
You know what? Also, I don't think we actually mentioned the power going out.
yeah, we didn't bring it up. That's true. There was a whole side plot where Rex sabotaged. Right. I assume it was Rex. Anyway,
that's what it seems like.
Well,
Haven,
that's why they.
Although he never took advantage of it. I guess. Oh, okay. I guess it was just for this to make sure they didn't.
Yeah, just make sure they don't find out that he's a bastard and been lying to them.
Yeah, and I guess between Hawking's life support and Genova, as Laura put it, they did have other things to worry about, but it is very sort of convenient that he happened to explain his backstory at that exact point. Like,
yeah.
Because here's the thing is, how does Rex know that Tobarr is gone? Because if they had just gotten the power back, then they would have just seen Tobarr if he had not jumped into the fun zone. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. That doesn't make much sense. Unless we haven't yet gotten an explanation for why the green zone popped up, so maybe he opened the green dimension. I don't know. I'm spitballing here at this point.
I don't know if we ever get an explanation for that.
Oh, well, then that is the most reasonable explanation by default. If there
maybe we do. I don't know. So, yeah, that was 3 Knuckles comics. It didn't feel like there was much of a start, and there certainly wasn't any end.
They were definitely very much,
Ken Pender's writing is a perpetual middle.
I don't mind it too much. Having lots of very connected arcs, I actually, filler, perhaps. However, whereas Sonic comics do this all the time, the Knuckles comics, like I said, often, there's often an arc to follow. So I kind of like that there are actually just a few issues to just let things simmer a little bit. They still introduce stuff, just not as much as before. And honestly, I think it builds the intrigue a little bit, as long as, they do get back to actually moving things along, which I think they will.
They technically do. And I think it makes sense to have, a lower key thing to let things breathe a bit. But it is weird that it ends on this urgent, like, oh, there's an imposter, there's a traitor there's this evil guy secretly in the Haven base. But then the next arc just takes a nosedive into completely different subject matter. I don't know.
Why do you keep refusing to say Among Us?
You know why I keep refusing to say Among Us.
Gee, imposter Among Us, it's almost like that's an actual term. It's not a fucking meme.
I'm gonna ignore that and head into Sonic number 64.
You can't cut this.
So
I don't give you permission to cut that.
So speaking of what we were just speaking about and nothing else, that being arcs that are filler and not filler, it is the flip side with the Sonic comics because they're actually getting to the plot.
It's
Finally.
Nagas!
Where it
There
says
he
at
is.
last, it's Nagas. They knew they were stalling, but
Those-
at least I'm still glad that they're actually going.
Those assholes didn't lie to us last time.
Yeah. This is Sonic number 64, and this is In Search of Ellipses, written by Carl Ballers and drawn by Stephen Butler. Sonic and Tails finally reach Nagas in the southern tundra, but when he brings the mountain down on them, they're narrowly saved by a duo of a cyborg yeti and an aged human scientist.
You mean Overlander scientist?
I'm
You're
I'm
not
gonna ignore
wrong.
that.
I'm just. Anyway, that was an accurate summary. Very good.
Sonic and
Um,
Tails have some snow gear that I like.
I do like the snow gear also.
Weird that we get this drawn out moment where Tails is like, Sonic, are we gonna die after we beat Nagas? Like, this is way heavy subject matter than what I would expect.
Yeah,
Why does-
I don't really know
why
what
is
he's scared
Tails-
of.
Yeah, why is Tails asking that?
I don't know. These writers like their melodrama.
It's the soap opera BS.
Yeah, I guess.
So apparently this whole time their plane has just been powered by one ring that suddenly went out when they hit the tundra?
So,
Does-
weird thing. I've never seen a ring go out like that. I assume they just disappeared or something.
Yeah, I guess it's Nagas doing something, probably. I don't think it's just the cold air killing the ring. I don't know.
No, it's definitely something Nagas related because he talks about how
Right.
they're trapped, so he like knows that they're trapped anyway. So it's reasonable that he caused it.
Plus, the rings in Ice Cap Zone and Sonic 3 don't go out, and as we know, these comics pay close attention to the games.
Ah, yes, of
Oh
course.
yes, very much so.
Anywho, so Sonic and Tails are talking here for a while in the middle of a blizzard. It's like, this is not time for exposition of things we already know, which is that Kodos and Arachnus returned to Crystal because they'd been in the Zone of the Silence like King. But we do get a little bit here, which is that satellite from before that let out the prisoners turns on again. I'm not sure what it does here. I guess it maybe causes the avalanche, although I think it's Nagas doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
so-
that's Nagas.
This is also in my notes. I had to check. I wonder what people on the Sonic Wiki think. And the answer is both. They've noted both Nagas and the satellite as the cause of the avalanche. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's clear at all. Maybe they both did it at the same time.
Asynchronous multiplayer co-op avalanche. So yeah, they get in an avalanche, and Nagas sort of manifests from it. I'm not sure how that works, but it's him. He's here.
It's magic.
How that works is the writers looked at Nagas and they're like, oh shoot. The first time Nagas showed up, Sonic just made a brilliant deduction about how people can't turn crystal and then like hit him in the face or something, and then he lost. The second time, he disguised himself as the king, but then he blew his cover on his own and then jumped off a building. Man, this guy's pretty pathetic. I know. He can control the elements and morph into fire, wind, ice, and earth. Yes, that will make him formidable. So that's happening now.
Which makes it
Alrighty.
hilarious that Sonic's opening move is to hit him with a snowball.
Well, that's just Sonic being Sonic. Lovely.
That's perfectly in character.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. So yeah, we get a bit of a fight scene here with Nagas, but it is suddenly interrupted when a random cyborg yeti shows up and freezes Tails in a block of ice.
I'm gonna have to correct you there. I don't think that's true. This is confusing. It confused me. I had to look at this a few times. I
don't-
believe
He's not the one that froze Tails.
I believe that Nagas freezes Tails
Yeah.
because he has a flamethrower and is actually trying to defrost him. But
Uh-huh.
Sonic misinterprets it. Probably at a glimpse, it looks like maybe he froze him, but he's actually trying to help Tails.
Okay, I did not make that connection, and also you'd think that maybe they could have shown Naga's. I guess they're trying to misdirect you. That's why they have Tails shout, "No, no, get away from me," and then it's that. But I don't know. It's not very well done. I don't think.
No, I agree. It was very confusing. Even more so because Naga seems to be cheering the Abominable Snowbot on, even though they're actually shown to be enemies later.
Yeah, he doesn't even know who this guy is for the most part. When it doesn't make any sense, why would you cheer that on? Because you froze Tails, and this guy's using fire to thaw him out. Why would you...
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, a bit weird. And, you know, all of that is then thrown off by another avalanche, and I don't even know, is this one caused by the satellite and the other one was caused by Naugus, maybe?
You know, that maybe makes sense.
Well, in any case, they all get buried except for Yeti Man here, and he takes Sonic and Tails up to Ice Castle.
Yes, indeed.
And we don't have a lot of context for this, but they are discovered by a very short scientist with an incredibly rigorously detailed face.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot of detail.
Ladies and gentlemen, and others, it's Nate Morgan, the man. He's here.
This guy is one of the... I hesitate to use the word infamous, because I don't think people really hate this guy. He's not a terrible character, but he's one of the more, like, questioned, like, what the fuck characters in the series, because a lot of people, you know, would relay stories about how, oh yeah, I read these Sonic comics as a kid, and I always thought it was weird how I would open them up, and Sonic would be hanging out with this very old, short, black scientist man, who does not look, you know, like most Sonic characters. Not because he's black, but just because he's, you know, so different from the usual Sonic art style.
Well, although actually, even the other humans we've seen in these comics.
Yeah, although that in part that it is different. I do think that this might actually be the first black guy to even show up in Sonic, maybe. But well, okay. I assume we're not counting like Robot Urkel. But I don't know.
This character is very strange. Certainly when I read these comics the first time, I was like, just another weird character. There are a lot of them. But true. I have to give them all the credit, because anytime anything relates back to Sad AM, they get points. And so this character is actually based on an unused concept from that show. So that makes me appreciate them like 200% more.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I think Devin mentioned that after we recorded that episode, or the last episode of Sad AM.
Yeah, after the last Sad AM episode, we talked a little bit about the scrapped concepts, and we did look at the original concept design for Sad AM's version of Nate Morgan, which is completely different. He is a extremely tall, lanky, goof-ass, like, sorcerer man. He's like a wizard, whereas here he's a short scientist man.
Yeah, they reimagined him. Honestly, I think for the better, because he's supposed to be like arch enemies with Naugus. Right. So making him as contrasting as possible, I think works really well for that.
Yeah, I would go purely into like the science field, or as much as we can.
So we end off with Eddie the Yeti. That's his name, by the way. His name is Eddie. His arm-mounted flamethrower just activates on his own, and Naugus comes out of the fire.
Yeah, that's actually a really neat piece of setup, because they foreshadow that he could morph into fire. So I think that's a cool way to end the issue. We skipped over a bit that I like to bring up. Nate's first reaction to Sonic is to mistake him for Jules, which is a really cute detail.
Yeah,
that is a cool detail.
But that is, of course, the to be continued, because all of these stories have to share room with Penders' fucking thing.
Gosh darn it.
And it's like the contrast is immediate, you know, because the Sonic and Tails thing, like, I don't know if I'd call it the most amazing story ever, but it kept things moving, you know, and Butler's art is, you know, good. And then we immediately transition to On His Majesty's Secret Service Part 4, which is written by Penders and drawn by Mawini. And it's like, you can feel how this is just a story about characters standing around talking with the same Mawini art that we've had for 100 comics at this point. Because with Sally unable to change his mind, Max finally tells Jeffrey's team their mission, to find the Queen, who has been missing for 10 years.
Yes, that's true. Although I will say, like, Sally doesn't really even try. I mean, she's just like, this is outrageous. And the king is like, know your place, my daughter. And she's like, fine, and then leaves. Like, it's hardly even a confrontation.
Listen, I gotta give Sally, if she's gotta get something. I gotta have her included somehow. I miss my girl.
Yeah, this is sad.
Yeah, so Max and Jeffrey are dicks, and Sally's here to tell us that. King tells her to fuck off and she leaves, but we finally learn that the black op that Jeffrey and his team have been assigned is to find Queen Alicia, Sally's mother, who went missing after Jeffrey's dad died trying to deliver her to a safe house.
Floating island is actually what they settled on, I think.
They said their
Yeah.
residence on this floating island.
Yes, so that's right. Yeah, I'm surprised because they brought him up before, and I was like, oh, I didn't even think about the queen. So now they're actually going into it. So that's kind of neat. When they do talk about Knothole here, though, which means that they retconned the fact that the tunnels were in fact built before the coup, whereas Sonic Kids originally retconned. So that's funny. Are the writers fighting again?
I don't know. It's getting hard to follow in a lot of regards. And we're just dealing with so much Jeffrey and Max in these last few issues. It's been difficult.
It's very hard getting through these stories, I'll tell you.
Yeah, but at least I think next time we're not gonna have more of that. We're gonna have more of that next time, but it's not gonna be occupying space in the Sonic stories. So. Yeah, that's the end of the issue. It's literally just he says this is what you're gonna do, and then they're like, all right, we're gonna do it.
Yep, it's Pender's famous, we're gonna do something, just not right now.
Yeah. So let's move on to Sonic number 65, Who is Nate Morgan, and a very, like, fat-looking Naugus there look at his neck, it's so wide.
It is a strange drawing. But honestly, he's a strange character, so that works.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It's a whole room full of strange characters tonight.
True.
But yes, the story here is, I kid you not, the story here is the Fellowship of the Rings, even in the Lord of the Rings font. Written by Bollards and drawn by Butler. Nate Morgan explains his history with the Acorn Kingdom and with Ixis Naugus before providing Sonic with the tools he needs to fight Naugus. So I do think that this opening scene here is funny because we have Naugus attacking, and we get to hear a little bit about him, and we don't see a lot of his history with Nate Morgan before he gets amazingly excised from the premises by Nate throwing a ring out the window, and Naugus just chases it out the window.
Like a dog.
Yeah, so he literally has them at his mercy. He pulls out, I suddenly have the ability to force choke you all. Like, he's about to game over everyone. But then Nate, throws a single ring, and he's like, I'll just spare all my enemies for one ring. Sounds good. He could have killed them all and then gone for the ring later.
He also, he's not choking out Nate.
Probably because he wants to, taunt him a few more minutes and then kill him. Because Nate doesn't look like he has much defense to him, although he does. But that's at the moment we don't know that.
I guess so. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. So Naugus is somehow just jumping out of there. Despite everything he can do, he doesn't get back for a while. And we get this big, 7-page long backstory for Nate's history with everything.
So I'd like to point out, it's explicitly stated that Naugus can't get in here because there's magic thingamajiggers that keep him out. He only got in because he snuck in the flamethrower.
Okay, I made a mistake. Sorry about that. So, this backstory. Nate has interacted with like half of every important character in the series, but we've never heard of him before now.
Yes.
Well, real quick, what's a geophysician?
Yeah,
Lauren
so
and I had a little conversation about that a few days ago.
I can't find
Yeah.
any way that those words make sense.
I googled it. The word physician apparently can also mean physicist.
Oh,
Okay.
And
okay.
geophysicist is an actual thing.
Yes, that does make sense.
I have a feeling it was originally supposed to be geophysicist, and then some editor went and opened a thesaurus. The only thing I can think of.
It's possible, yeah.
Maybe.
So Nate was originally, yes, a geophysician on the overlander city of Megapolis. And you can see there that he worked alongside Robotnik. I don't remember what name he was going by at that point. Julian Tobarr. Yeah, okay. But he was banished from the city after Robotnik encouraged him to do a dangerous test which caused a massive explosion. Sorry, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, yeah, I like how we've come full circle, and finally the comics have definitively established, they kind of teased it in a what-if story, but that doesn't count, that the rings are artificial, even in the comic continuity.
Yes,
so
Nate created them, and I forgot about that when we talked about it before. So yeah, Nate was exiled, but he was come upon by former King Frederick Acorn. All the Mobians wanted to kill him for being a human, but Frederick Acorn was like, nah, we're gonna make you a member of the royal court, and you'll use Ring and Chaos Energy to turn Mobotropolis into a sci-fi utopia. We always gotta have our sci-fi utopias.
Yeah, and again, another point I have to make is that way back from whatchamacallit, the stupid ancient walkers send Sonic billionth ring dimension. I believe that was the first time it was implied the Chaos Emeralds and the rings are linked. So now, yes, they are definitively.
Right.
Yeah, so Nate has had a very eventful life. He was even a college professor who taught Chuck and Jules, you can see there.
Yeah.
But we also learn that the big war between the Mobians and the Overlanders was orchestrated by Naugus, using Kodos as the catalyst, and then he blamed Nate for it. So Nate got exiled twice.
Yeah, so there's a bit of symmetry here. The first time he was exiled because, now it isn't outright stated, but I would put money that Robotnik actually gave Nate bad advice on purpose. And then obviously it's outright stated Naugus got him kicked out. So I'd like to think that the two of the big villains in this series kicked him out from both of his settlements.
Yeah. So yeah, Nate was kicked out. He left the original Lake of Rings for others to find and took up residence here in the far south. And yeah, we had a lot of explanation. And the point is, Nate has had a rough time of it. He has been betrayed by so many people, and it has turned him bitter, and it was convenient as well, because he is the solution that Carl Ballers devised to the giant pile of problems that is the Archie Sonic canon.
Honestly, it's quite a bit at once, but works fine enough.
Yeah, it works well enough.
What I didn't expect, because, you know, I had that experience of opening up a Sonic comic and being like, who the hell is Nate Morgan? But I think that he's a well-established character here, because he is a guy who has been burned so many times that he's kind of just given up.
Yeah. I can definitely see his perspective.
So, yeah, and we end with him. This was why I was saying providing. I probably wrote that summary about providing Sonic with the tools to fight Naugus, because he shows them this giant treasure trove of rings, but it's only next week that we're going to learn that he says you're not allowed to actually use them, though.
Yeah. Certainly, when I read this, I was like, oh, so now they get all the rings. No.
And this is where our format for arc structures has failed us, because you'd think that we'd have the actual Naugus fight in this episode. It's not going to happen until next week, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, actually, the triple arc was in the Sonic comics this time.
It was.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But Baller stories this week have done a decent enough job, I think. I think they were alright.
Pretty good. Yeah.
But we have one more Penders story, which is, of course, also drawn by Mawini, which is The Library. And that is a Sonic 1 level title card on there, isn't it?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, it
right.
is.
That's actually really cute.
Oh.
Yeah. And that is probably the least embarrassing thing about this, because in this story, Amy becomes interested in finding the works of a certain writer with the last name of Kirby, and she and Dulcie search through an old library. However, they're scared off when someone else seems to be inhabiting the dilapidated building. Inhabiting? So, I want to be clear here. This is just Penders obsessing over Jack Kirby? I think that some editor went up to Ken Penders and said, okay, SEGA wants you to use Amy for stuff because she is actually one of their characters. And Ken was like, fine, but only if I get to make it about talking about my favorite comic book writer.
That's possible, because something I noted was, I will give Ken some credit, which is that he's actually using Amy, and for what it's worth, he remembered Dulcie existed. I didn't, but he did. But if it was forced on him, that explains that.
One thing I want to draw attention to here, and by the way, we're not talking through the events of this story like we do typically, because there's fucking nothing that happens here. They go into a library, they look at some books, they hear someone there, and then they leave.
Yeah.
I want to draw attention to the shot where they're looking at the bookcase, and you can see that some of them, have, different book titles. One of them says Game Gear Tips, haha, funny. One of them has clearly been digitally edited in our version to say Sonic Legacy Volume 1, which of course was not out in the year 1997, because originally that said The Lost Ones, Book 1 by Ken Penders.
Oh my god.
Oh no!
He was still trying to push this stuff, and the archives versions got rid of it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about this story is, I guess that seems right, that Amy would be looking around for cool books, and Dulcie kind of has a childlike quality as well. That makes sense as a duo. However, it doesn't really make sense to actually put that story in these comics. Like, this is like, maybe, I don't know how often they do this, but sometimes they do, like short 2 or maybe 4-page stories. This is more than even 4. So I think they went into more than it needs. I mean, they're obviously setting something up, because this is how Ken Penders sets things up with boring stories, but it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would really like one of these episodes to end on an exciting comic, but every backup story is like this.
Fuck yeah, we haven't had an exciting ending in a while.
Well, it's because we're having exciting lead stories, because they're letting other writers take the helm, and they're always putting Penders on the back burner. But it means that we always have to end off with Ken just waffling on about some dry nonsense.
So, face to face with a bunch of rings, maybe even a billion rings, who knows? What is Sonic and Tails gonna do? How are they gonna stop Naga? So, see next time. It's gonna be a big smackdown.
Find out next time on another exciting episode of Deep Dive Ball Z. I could just end the episode there, but I'm not gonna.
No, do it.
Yeah,
do it. No balls.
We didn't rate the Knuckles and Sonic comics.
Oh shit!
I don't even know. Actually, I have to think about this.
I think the Knuckles comics were better.
I
don't know. I feel like while the backstory stuff with Nate was interesting, the rest of it was just kind of... I mean, most of the 2 comics was just kind of nothing.
Well, that is a fair judgment. I'm going to disagree, though. I'm going to say I picked the Sonic comics, although it's a close one, honestly. They both have a lot of what I like, which is setting up weird lore and stuff. I know we'll have ramifications for the future. I just picked Sonic because it has, things I'm familiar with and already kind of biased towards anyway, because, we're getting some stuff for Naugus, and as we said, stuff with Nate, who does link to that and sort of brings a new perspective to things. So,
Yeah.
I'll pick Sonic.
Okay.
Well, that's hilarious because I'm also picking Sonic, which means we have got an exact reversal of last time where I was the only one who
Oh,
picked
yeah.
Sonic and both of you picked Knuckles.
Oh yeah. Huh.
Well, that is going to be it for tonight. It was a weird night. I really hope we start to get out of these. We're going to see some plot points get brought up next time, I know for a fact. But with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching. You can find all of our links to contact us here on the screen. If you would like, you can share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. I hope you have a great night, and we will see you next week.